light for you in dark places when all other lights go out.
Hey guys, it's DCHL Devin here, and welcome to another episode of A Light in the Dark. And it has been a while since I've actually created one of these, and the background might show you a little reason of why. Guys, I've been moving houses. Essentially, after Nova, I had to pack everything up and go, so I don't have the typical background behind me, but instead, I suppose, a collection of my father's steins. So these he got from Germany and from all over Europe, and I felt it was kind of fitting for this episode, maybe, or that it's just what I had other than a blank wall of my room, because today we're going to talk about Ardacon, and this is a largely kind of unprepared video in a sense. I just wanted to get this out as quickly as possible. We're now a week away from Ardacon, and it's almost just in time for James's questionnaire he's about to send out, where everyone else is, of course, going to give their opinions to James and such. So I just wanted to give my opinion of Ardacon just as quickly as possible, and this is just the way I can do it. So, anyway, I'm going to give kind of a no-holds-bar kind of review, sort of like Andreas did. If you guys didn't see Andreas's review of Ardacon, he's on the Fellowship page. He's known as a Norwegian Viking. Definitely check him out. If you guys want fast, up-to-date information, then he's the guy to go to. He will get the stuff out pretty much the hour it's shown, and his reputation shows. He also got the Ardacon review out, his Ardacon review out about a week ago. So I'm just going to kind of go through. I'm not going to really talk about too much on Team North America and my adventures through Ardacon and pretty much how well I did. I'll save that for another video. Also not going to touch upon the Iron Hills Dwarves that were released, or the fact that we looked at the book and we saw a lot of new stuff, talked to Adam and Jay, and they had a speech and everything at Ardacon itself. Although I'll mention that happened, I'm not really going to go over that. This is strictly just to show my opinion of the actual tournament itself and everything about that. So, keep in mind, although this is a no-holds bar, I want it to be known that actually I really enjoyed myself, so any negative criticism is literally just criticism only to improve the event. Personally, after already what I've seen, I want to come back again. I'm perfectly on board with coming back again, except under maybe one thing, and I think one major important thing needs to change. Other than that, though, I would absolutely come back again, and I think throughout this video, you'll kind of start to see what that thing is. Let's go through it. I guess I arrived at Ardacon, and Ardacon started a little bit late. Which is fine. This happens in a lot of conventions. As you guys know, we run Nova. Though at Nova, we allot an entire day beforehand to set up. At Ardacon, it seems like he would have had to pay for that time, and he wouldn't have had the funding to do that. So he had to set up, I think he allotted for maybe 4 hours ahead of time, which is pretty sufficient, I'd say. You know, he only has to set up a single room, so it's a lot of tables, but overall, I'd say he attempted to give himself enough time, but the hotel delayed him a little bit. So it won't penalize him on that. So the event itself started off late. However, the line, as Andreas pointed out, was really long. The line to actually register, and that's because of the late start. But hopefully James has learned about the line situation and how to kind of mitigate that for future events. Maybe as one way I do like Andreas pointed out, and I was just going to mention it too, is the fact that, you know, maybe start the people ahead of time. But, you know, while you guys are setting up, just allow people to register and only let people through who have the little lanyards, the passes. But other than that, Ardacon, as far as, you know, once it was actually set up, as far as what he was trying to accomplish, I think he did fantastically well. Guys, we're talking about a real Class A type of showing here. What Ardacon was supposed to be is, it's supposed to be a different type of tournament in the sense that it mirrors what this grand experience, and it's an experience that you can't find in any other tournament. And having it in a hotel of the Mirkers, I believe is how you pronounce it. The hotel you got is like a 4-star hotel. Having it in that type of environment really allowed him to just blow our minds away with this absolute showcase experience. And I think that overall that was accomplished. I think that if this tournament had been held in like a gym or in a school cafeteria, the experience would not have been as great. And it's kind of hard to understand that, especially if you haven't come to Nova before. I guess it's no secret at this point that this was inspired by that. But if you haven't come to that, a lot of people might ask, well, why would you have this in a 4-star hotel? Why not make it cheaper? But the whole point is to have it in a 4-star hotel. That is the experience. To have us all together. I mean, the fact that we stayed together, all the players, as soon as you were done your game, you would just end up kind of hanging around this area where there's a bar, and it was a really nice area set up, and you could go across the way. There was another little pub. And I think that it was a fantastic time. The fact that I kept running into those famous faces, Steve Crow and James and the GBHL crew, and even the ones who don't have YouTube channels but you know about, like, you know, Dan Intwistle and such. I think it was fantastic, not to mention the other communities that were coming as well. It was great that you could literally just turn around and there's some more of your friends, and you turn around, there's some more of your friends. So I think the overall atmosphere that he was trying to create was very well done. So I would say that alone is a reason I would come back, because you have to, that alone is a contributing factor and a reason I would come back, because you really need that kind of experience. If I'm going to spend $1,000, which, guys, by the way, guys, this costs me like in the range of like $1,000 because of the flights and such and hotels, to come to Ardacon, you need a premier experience. So kudos to you, actually, James, for setting that up. I think you did very well with that kind of atmosphere. So once we got on the line, and he gave us a little swag bag, which is, you know, it's cool. It had a dice and a pin and just little things just to kind of somewhat enhance your experience and whatnot. He had things for sale, and I think that was pretty well orchestrated by his mom, as best she could do as a single person. But she was by herself, and so she needed a little bit more help. I think he sent his sister to go help out, but overall, you could tell, like 140 people all at once. Definitely a lot of people for a single person to take on. So hence, Ardacon started late. So the first event we get into is Chaos and Arda. And the only thing I'll say about Chaos and Arda overall was very well reviewed. Everyone who I talked to had a great time with it. I was actually a little bit worried how people might think of it outside of the DCHL community, but it seems like overall the opinion was pretty stellar. A lot of people liked it. So the only thing is, we got there, and there were no rules, and there were no scatter die. So everyone was standing around like, how do I play the game? And the response was to look on Facebook and find the rules on there. So there's two main problems. Oh, by the way, guys, if you hear noises outside, that's noises I can't control, unfortunately, because I'm not in my own house. But there's two problems to that. Number one, when you have a Facebook page, you have to kind of scroll up a lot trying to find this Chaos and Arda's rule pack. You don't have a website, so it makes it extremely difficult to find. Number two, it really is convenient when you don't have to look at a completely new rule set from your phone. And that created a lot of problems where I noticed a lot of tables did not know how to play the game for the first like 30 minutes onward for a little while. Now, once they started getting the hang of it, luckily Chaos and Arda is a one-page rule set, so we got away with that, right? But I did notice a lot of confusion there. There was also no scatter die. Although, you know, all the players should know, you know, that they need a scatter die for that game, they really shouldn't. It should be upon the tournament host to provide all materials required to play the game. And scatter die is required to play the game. Now, you can switch to hold ground methods for deployment, but overall, even Adam Troke was like, you know, I really want the scatter die. I want to play the game the way it was supposed to be played. And a lot of people couldn't do that. So just a little bit of a mention there. Had it not been for a lot of the surrounding DCHL Canadian community who have already played this game quite often, it might have been very difficult. I noticed the Polish players and some of the Norwegian players and East Anglian players and such were having just a lot of time like how do we play this game? Otherwise, though, fantastic start to the event. I think that it was a fantastic icebreaker, and I think that is something you should carry on forward, or at least something like that in the events going forward as far as Ardacon. I think that was a good move. So, I guess next we move on to the end of the night. Chaos and Arda had to end a little bit early, which was fine. But other than that, I think everyone had a good time. We all went to the bar, went to the pub, and we continued from there. So let's go on to move on to the next day. We have the GT, the Premier Experience. It didn't actually start technically with the GT. It actually started with an eating contest. The eating contest is all good fun. I liked it a lot. I would only advise a word of caution on that one. Because technically the eating contest is a paid-for experience. When you pay for your Ardacon ticket, you get all of this packaged in. It's not like you went to your mom's house and you're eating a hot chili pepper. It's a chili they had to eat, guys, for those who didn't go. It's like one of the hottest chilies in the world. It's not like a... You know, you're just going to your mom's house, you eat a chili, and if you get sick, you're good to go. If anyone had gotten sick or really kind of maybe in trouble eating the chili, then that actually would have been on Ardacon. And now I'm not saying anyone would have necessarily sued you, hopefully not, or anything like that, but just note that even Nova, as big as it is, does not cater food. Not at all. Food is a realm and a territory I personally wouldn't touch. Just because of the risk. You could say that anyone who has a problem eating peppers should know, and they should plan that in advance. But some people may not actually know, or some people may not realize how hot this pepper is and fully underestimate it. But luckily, the experience went off without a hitch, without a problem, and it seemed like overall you guys had a great time. I personally did not compete in the chili pepper eating contest, mostly because once again, guys, just so you know, with the noise, I can't control it, but I didn't personally compete in the chili contest because I wanted to go hardcore competitive mode for the GT, so I didn't want to ruin my chances. I was representing Team North America, who got smashed by the British at Nova, so we needed to have we were trying to push as hard as we could. But, so I didn't participate in that. And, oh, this actually leads me to the next part. Adam Troke and Jay went to a Q&A. Now, keep in mind, they actually had a pub quiz beforehand after Chaos and Arda. And it was a good experience. I actually really enjoyed the quiz. They had a lot of questions I never would have thought of before, like name a stat line and name like a scene from a movie, like what's missing. I have to say that that was a fantastic experience. Something that even if we never saw GW, I think I would actually mimic something like that. That was a great, great time. And then they had the Q&A where they answered a bunch of questions. I'll get into that in a totally different review, guys, because this isn't really... It's part of Ardacon, but it's not really the part that James can change, improve, whatnot. This is actually Adam Troke and Jay Clare. And they're already, like Adam Troke is already, his job is to run things like this. So, of course, that went extremely smoothly. I had no complaints whatsoever. They were fantastic at presenting themselves. They did good. So, let's go into the GT. The GT itself had the 6 scenarios. And I have to say, regarding the 6 scenarios, the basic scenarios out of the book, great idea. Do not use custom scenarios when you have multiple different countries coming, or at least customize very minimally. And James didn't at all, and I think that was a brilliant idea on his part. The 6 main scenarios are well balanced when all played, all 6 together. So I think that worked out really well. And we got that, and there was the tables. The tables were pretty sparse. That really wasn't an issue for me, mostly because I kind of expected it. When you're running your first event, as people saw even in my first event at Nova, or other people, if you've ever run a tournament before, and it's your first event, even the legendary Steve Crow, who had like all this amazing terrain, noticed, okay, I don't have enough really, and some tables are kind of more sparse than others, and you're just trying to get all the tables filled. And so, I mean, I was okay with the fact that most of the tables were probably represented by, 2 buildings and a couple trees, maybe a grass patch. So it favored archery heavily. I noticed that there was pretty much almost no way an opponent could avoid my Hobbit bowfire. But other than that, I was actually perfectly fine with the terrain. I didn't, except for the blue tack trees. Anybody who went to Ardacon and had to experience the blue tack trees, blue tack, in theory, is a fantastic idea, and in practice, terrible. Me and Andreas actually just moved them all to the side. Even me and my match against Dave Nolan, we just moved the trees because they keep falling over. They fall and they pull on the mat and such like that, and you're always knocking them down. They barely actually do anything, and so you're like, all right, I get it that you probably didn't have the time to create bases for these things, but yeah, this is not working. So oftentimes you see, like, I'd go to the next table and there's a bunch of trees just shoved to the side. So that's something just to consider, but that's an understandable thing. You obviously did not have enough time to construct hundreds of trees and such like that, so completely get it. And also, a lot of them came in the original packaging. So you were just given the trees, you know, donated by a company. I would imagine that you got a lot of those that day. So, or maybe the day before or a week before. So, during the GT experience, I had fantastic games. The only thing I would say is two things, and this is really contributing. You may have heard a mention of it. You being by yourself really hurts the games. I would say that actually being by yourself could almost be used as a weapon with the players. Now, what I mean by that is we only had an hour and a half to finish our games, which is already an extremely short period of time for 600 points. You got to move quick, and you got to understand how the time goes. But one thing that a lot of players noticed is even with the ring bearer system, a lot of times there's complicated rules, complicated rulings and such that are critical, especially on top table games. And I was on top table for quite a while. About 3 games I was on the top tables, like top 3 tables. And we noticed even us, you really couldn't get the TO, the overarching TO, which is James, to make a ruling. Now James did come down originally, eventually and say, hey look, whatever the ring bearers say is final. Guys, if you don't know what a ring bearer is, the ring bearers are 9 people that were elected by James to be table judges. The problem is, most of those table judges are very good at the game, which means they are also on top tables. And therefore, over time, they tend to get shoved toward one side. And if they don't, like some of the teams didn't have top table judges, even if they're not, there was no way to identify them. I honestly, I'm pretty well versed in who the community is as far as an international player. I would say that I'm probably more well versed than almost anybody else, given the fact that I've run this channel. And I still didn't know 4 of the 9 ring bearers, and I couldn't identify them. I know Damien, of course, and I know David Clubley, whom David Clubley is actually pretty unknown amongst some of the international community. But yet I knew him, and I had the advantage of knowing Adam Chandler, whom, again, other than his channel Blackfire Productions, you really don't know him very well. You know, I don't know who these ring bearers are. And so you kind of go to that maybe 1 or 2 you might know, but other than that, you can't find them. And yes, you did bring them on the stage. So he did, before the event, he brought them on the stage. But you only get a quick look at them, maybe about for a minute, and maybe 2 minutes, and then they get off the stage and they disappear in the crowd. You may notice, guys, we solved this problem at Nova by having vests on. Now, I'm not saying have some dorky bowler shirts, but have something, an identifying piece of feature or something that I can identify a table judge. Otherwise, we're doing exactly what we think we need to do. James, where are you? Now, this is the big thing. James was running not only the convention, but the raffle and the vendors and the hotel staff working out, you know, everything with the hotel. He was working out the overall feel and the atmosphere. He was being the top table judge all by himself. Now, normally I would say that this is a quality to be admired. However, this actually hurt the tournament multiple times. James being by himself really was crippling in the sense that players often couldn't get rulings. I often noticed, even on my top table games, within only an hour and a half time, we couldn't get rulings in time. It took a long time. But sometimes you're like, where is James? Now, James is the most identifiable with his Ardacon shirt, but even he will disappear in a crowd. And if he's gone, then you're like, where are you? And sometimes the ring bearers cannot make the decision. It is too close a call. It is too heated a call. It needs a TO who is fully in charge. And even with utmost authority, a lot of TOs did not feel comfortable making like huge decisions on big ticket items. And that was a real problem. So I have to say, once again, like your mom was by herself, you were by yourself, you guys are really understaffed for this type of operation. The fact that it even got set up on the time that it did is really due to the community helping you out. A lot of the community came in. We helped set up the trees. We helped with Chaos and Arda as far as like, you know, teaching people how to play a game. We now are helping with maybe some rulings and whatnot. But overall, you know, when I'm on a top table game, I can't have like, you know, us searching for you like that. There needs to be multiple judges, multiple identifiable judges, identifiable being the key word, because technically there was the ring bearers, but once again, I named the problem with those. They're in the middle of their game. So a lot of times they don't feel like making that ruling. I won't touch on that much further, but I remember, guys, if this sounds negative, keep in mind that I had a fantastic experience at Ardacon. I don't want anyone thinking, all right, he's saying all this negative things, was Ardacon terrible? No, not at all. It's just that the things you improve upon are the negative things. The positive things, keep doing them. And I think a lot of people liked overall the tournament. I think we had a good time with it. Here's the other thing about being by yourself, though. And the pairings take a while because you can't pair certain teams together, so they get all finagled up. A lot of times you could hear like, oh, you two switch and you two switch. And also the scores took a long time. Not only that, but the checking lists take a long time when you're by yourself. Being by yourself, as far as like James being alone on the entire operation, made all of the GT go until 2 in the morning. So I think the event was slated to end at 10, maybe 11 at most, but not 2 in the morning. At 2 in the morning, you're talking about some players had to go home. I know that Dave being one of them, Dave Nolan, he had to go home because he has a family, so he had to leave. I can imagine other ones did that same thing. Some kids can't stay up that late. And keep in mind, guys, the events were not pushed back for the next day. All right, so that means that we now, you know, we're ending the GT, we're exhausted, and a lot of us still want to technically like talk to each other and whatnot, but you're still getting up early the next day for the last GT round, and this is pivotal. Some players, if you have a time zone problem, it causes other issues. So I'm still fighting jet lag, but maybe I came about a week ahead of time of Ardacon, so I kind of adjusted a little bit better, but if a player came right on Ardacon, then depending on where their time zones are at, they could really suffer some problems, especially for the American, Canadian players. Now, theoretically, you could say that the Canadian-American players should be fine because they're actually, I believe we're 5 hours back. So although it's 2 in the morning, we're actually at 10 at night. So you could say that. However, a lot of us try to adjust ahead of time by not sleeping. So this is just something to note about, is that running that late into 2 in the morning really hurts, and it really is because there's not enough people. Now, some people like Christian from the Denmark, I believe Denmark, yes, Christian from that group, and Dan Entwistle came and helped out, and once again got everything kind of running more quickly. They were helping out, but just being by yourself really, you know, it really kind of hurt the experience a little bit in that sense. However, I will say that easily 90% of the people had a positive experience about the GT, even the fact that it played all into 2 in the morning. I'm sure many gamers of us have played until 2 in the morning at one point in time. You probably don't want it during a competitive GT, but it was done. I think most of the players stayed around and still played the final game, and then still arrived the next morning. So, you know, so that day ended, and then we got into the paint judging. I believe the paint judging was the Sunday, and the early morning, and we got into that. That, once again, I don't know what the problem was there, but I think all the scores got lost or something about that. There was numbers next to the different prizes, and I believe the association with the name and the numbers got lost. I think James kind of retroactively fixed that over time. I don't know what the cause of that is, so I'm not going to actually comment on it. But overall, Christian, not Christian, I forgot his name, Sebastian, from the Norwegian group, pretty much cleaned house on a lot of that. So if you guys can, James actually posted his stuff on Facebook and his Facebook page, Sebastian's Facebook page. So definitely take a look at that. And so we get into the final round of the GT after the painting competition, and that goes pretty smoothly, as smoothly as you can expect. Everyone's kind of tired and whatnot at that point, but you know, it went well. No problems with that. The GT awards happened. I think the awards ceremony worked fairly well, and I think that he had a great presence on stage. I think that James is very good at that. He's very good at being on a stage and making a show of things, and I do enjoy that experience. He kind of brings a lot of enthusiasm, even when he only probably slept for like 2 hours. So I think anyone who saw James saw he was extremely tired, but he still makes a great show and a great presence on stage regardless. So the award ceremony went well, and then we have the doubles. And by that point, after everyone's already stayed up to 2 in the morning, and after everything's already kind of running late, and even the last final GT round ran a little late, I think at that point everyone was kind of looking at the clock and like, if I finish doubles, it'll be like midnight, and some people have to go home the next day and work the next day or even that night. And so I think a lot of people backed out. You could kind of see a lot of people drifting away from the tables. Even I was just way too tired, had to drift away from the tables. I was just done, completely knocked out. So, but otherwise, doubles went fine. I think it went very well. Doubles is kind of a fun event, so even any criticism of it would have been just like, oh, well, you know, who cares? It's all fun anyway. It worked out exactly as planned. And that was it. That was the end of Ardacon. Now, I kind of skimmed over it. I don't want to go too long on most of it, but I think the central theme here is, earlier in the video, I said I would absolutely come back, except for under one condition. I think the only reason I would be like hesitant is if James runs it by himself again. He needs help. You have to have more people running this type of operation. I had maybe a third of the players at Nova, and even with 5 people, it felt like too little. And you're running around. And I think, you know, I went ahead and just give it a shot, go to Ardacon, see how it goes, and I think we saw the results. Things were getting messed up left and right. And honestly, if it wasn't for the community, I would say that Ardacon wouldn't even have worked. And the reason I say that is because if it wasn't for your customers are your friends, all right? Ultimately, your customers are people who are promoting what you're doing. Even me, yeah, we may not know each other across the pond, but I support Ardacon, and its purpose and its goal is to support SBG. So of course I helped out. In the beginning, I helped set up the tables, I helped people with Chaos and Arda, I helped people with rules if they asked me questions, because some people know my face there. You know, I helped out as much as I could as well, but that's the thing, is your customers are your friends. Overall, if you have to run this kind of operation with a bunch of strangers, it's very unlikely they would help you to such a degree. And that is the only reason I could say the event kind of even happened in a lot of ways. I can say this just personally from my own opinion, but yeah, I think that you absolutely need a staff. You need a staff. I'd say for one person at minimum for every like 40 people you've got going on. And you're thinking about like 200 next year. You need more people. And I'm not talking about ring bearers. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people who step back, they don't play, and they just help with Ardacon. And I would say that that would improve the experience heavily. Remember, in this review video, I have to tell people, not is 65 pounds worth it, is $1,000 worth it almost. Now 65 pounds, let's just go with just 65 pounds. You're approaching Nova level territories there, where a Nova ticket for all the stuff for Lord of the Rings will cost you about $100. So even 65 pounds is more than that. It needs to run smoothly. It has to run smoothly, or as smoothly as possible. Sometimes things happen, not a problem. As I said, even with the trees, the blue tack situation, all right, I get it. You know, not mad at that. But it has to run on time. 2 o'clock in the morning is unacceptable for most people, and it has to go like just basically as smoothly as possible, is the best way I can put it. Especially for those of us flying. Sure, Americans and Canadians, we have to fly further, but as far as like Europeans, Norway, stuff like that, and all the other European nations and such, they're flying out there. It has to be run by a full team. So that's the one thing I would say, and I think even James agrees at this point. It seems like that's kind of the one biggest criticism he had. But overall, guys, I would say Ardacon is a success. I would say, would I personally go again? Yes. Do I recommend others go again or go for the first time at all? Yeah, actually, I would say that if you have to go, if you can only pick one GBHL event, I would say Ardacon is easily on the top of that. It's because it gives an experience that is unlike almost any other. I think the only one you could say would rival it for a one-time thing would be like Warhammer World GT. So that might, you know, cause some like, oh man, which one do I go to? But other than that, I would say Ardacon accomplished what it was trying to do. It accomplished its mission. You know, and I would say yes, I would absolutely go again. As of right now, that's kind of my mindset. So anyway, guys, let me know if you have any more questions about Ardacon. That is my review. Hopefully it wasn't too long. It's a little longer than I normally sit up here and talk to you guys. I know there's not much to look at, so hopefully you guys painted and such like that. Hopefully you guys admired my dad's steins. So maybe the glare on them might be a little too much, but other than that, guys, I will talk to you very soon.